Good morning, friends. Welcome to the fourth day of this Fertility to Manufacturing 2021 MAM 2021 at VNIT, and this will be the second session of this day. And the speaker for this session is Professor Rajesh Khatirkar. So I don't have much things to say about because everyone knows about Professor. So he works mostly on characterization and is currently an associate professor in the Department of Materials and Metallurgical Engineering, VNIT Nagpur. He was awarded almost 4 different projects from different funding agencies, 2 from DST, 1 from ARDB, and 1 recently he got from DRDO. He works extensively on the characterization of materials when even whether it is like additive manufacturing or forming process or a rolling process or casting process. His expertise is in mostly it is in texture. Professor Katirkar has completed his PhD from IIT Bombay, and we are taking lot of help from sir for our PhD scholars. It's something we got stuck up in characterization. He helps us, and right now we are working together for what we can say is the tensile testing. Yesterday, Chaitanya was talking about the tensile testing specimens. No, we are working together. Sir, we have 1 hour 30 minutes, sir. So 1 hour 15 minutes we will have discussion. 15 minutes we can leave the for the audience question answer sessions.
Okay, fine, no problem.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
shall I start then?
Yeah, you can start, sir.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank Professor TVK Gupta for giving me the opportunity to interact with you all. Now, I think with him, this is my fourth or fifth, I don't remember exactly, presentation. So I have, first of all, I would like to tell very briefly about myself. As he rightly said that I am working on characterization of materials, and my specialization is in texture development in materials. So what I have done is that since the topic was structure property correlation in additively manufactured materials, I have tried to incorporate some characterization also here, which will be important for additively manufactured materials. Like for example, many of you must not be aware about crystallographic texture of materials. So I will be briefly talking about crystallographic texture of the material. I'll be briefly talking about what do you mean by microstructure, very briefly about additive manufacturing, because I think you must be having a lot of lectures on this additive manufacturing, what is the process, how it works, like selected laser melting, then direct energy deposition. So all these processes you are aware. So I will just have 1 or 2 slides on that. And then I will be moving to this structure property correlation of additively manufactured materials. So in this, I will be covering basically 3 materials, 3 case studies you can say. First one will be ALSI 10mg, then second will be Inconel, and third one will be austenitic stainless steel 316 L austenitic stainless steel. So these are the 3 most widely used commercial materials for additive manufacturing. So whenever you read some paper, you will find that either it is ALSI 10mg or it is ALSI 12mg, it is 316 L or 304 L austenitic stainless steel, or Inconel 718 or 625. So we'll be having a very brief case study. Now, before going into that, this is the outline of my presentation. So first we will be talking about what is microstructure. So I am very much sure that everyone knows about the microstructure, what is microstructure, but still I feel that those who do not know, I will be talking about this microstructure. Okay, so according to me, what is microstructure and how do you define a microstructure? And what are the various tools, very briefly, which can be used for determination of the microstructure? Then there are 2 types. One is a conventional microstructure, and as in the introduction, TVK Gupta sir said that texture. So texture is also a part of microstructure. So what is this crystallographic texture? Is there anything more than the conventional microstructure we should know about, and why it is important? Then very briefly, one advanced characterization technique, electron backscatter diffraction. So there is something called as an electron backscatter diffraction, which will be utilized to measure the texture information along with the microstructure. So it is a combination of microstructure with texture, and we typically call it as microtexture. So a very brief introduction to EBFD technique, what data you get from that and how it can be useful to us. Okay, so that will be the first part, and then the second part will be importance of additive manufacturing and types. You must be having, you must have had many lectures about this additive manufacturing. So I will just briefly rush through this section, and then we'll focus more on the case studies. That is, first one will be aluminum alloys, second will be super alloys, and the third one will be your austenitic stainless steel, 316L austenitic stainless steel. So now to start with, what is microstructure? So always this question comes to our mind that microstructure, what is microstructure, and what we should look into whenever we say microstructure. Now, I will not go into very much details, but actually microstructure is something which you are interested in. That means let us say that you are having some process, or take an example of additive manufacturing. Now, whenever you are doing additive manufacturing of a component, the microstructure may consist of many things. It may consist of defects, it may consist of point defects, it may consist of line defects, it may consist of area defects, it may consist of volume defects, it may consist of phases, grains, which may be formed depending upon your processing parameters. So basically what you are interested in. So what are the parameters that you are interested in for the microstructure? Because in one particular sample, you will have everything. The quantification may vary, but in one particular sample, you are going to have all the things. Okay. So briefly, whenever somebody says, what is microstructure?
Sir, there is some connection problem or what?
So there is connectivity issue.
Sir? So there is some bandwidth it is showing low. Oh, sir is saying that power has gone. He's coming back. Oh, there is no internet also right now, he's saying. There is some electricity issue. Just wait some 2-3 minutes. Maybe it will be coming back. Power has come, but internet has not come. Sir is trying with mobile connection. We'll wait for some time.
Okay, so I think there was no power as well as internet.
Have you connected with mobile, sir?
Yes, I have connected through mobile.
Okay, fine.
So, audible, right?
Yeah, you're audible,
And
sir.
slides are visible, right? Yeah, and
It is
slides are
saying
also
that starting.
probably, right?
Yeah, now it is visible, sir. Visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so unfortunately there is no internet now. Internet is gone, so I have connected through mobile. So you may feel some lag. There may be some slight
Sir,
lag.
you can
Okay, so you
switch
have to
off your
bear with
video,
that.
sir. Video you can keep it off.
Okay, yeah, that
Better.
will help, I think. Yeah. Okay,
now it is.
so we were talking about microstructure. So in one particular sample, you can have multiple features. Now it will depend upon your application and your requirement, what exactly you want to look for. Okay, so this is just a very brief summary of different microstructural features which we are interested. So you will find that there could be single phase materials, there could be multi-phase materials, and each phase can have different structure. Okay, so you can have phase. So generally when we say phase, it is uniform composition, structures and properties. Phase structure can be altered through phase transformations. So typically when you do additive manufacturing, you have solidification, you have phase transformation because it is a high temperature process. Your material is locally melted. So you may have different phase structures. You may have formation of unwanted phases. Okay. So for example, if you take Inconel, you can have the formation of brittle materials like Laves phases and then other unwanted intermetallic compounds which are detrimental to your properties. So you can characterize for that by using the microstructural characterization tools. So phase structure can be altered through phase transformation. So that is one. Then each phase can have a particular grain structure. So whenever I say a grain structure for it is for one particular phase. So for one particular phase, you can have a grain structure. Okay. And we will see that here it is written that same phase or crystal structure, but different orientation of the crystals. So I will just explain very briefly in the next few slides. What do you mean by orientation? And once again, your grain structure can be altered through phase transformation, then plastic deformation, recrystallization, and grain growth. You will find that many times this additively manufactured components, you do heat treatment. So when you do heat treatment, you will have recrystallization. You may also have grain growth depending upon what is the phase and what is your material. Okay, so you can characterize for basically your phases, you can characterize for grains. So sometimes you'll be interested in phases, sometimes you'll be interested in grains. Then if you go one level deep, then you will have the defect structures. In many applications, you will find that this defects are also very important. Okay, so there are a lot of defects which can be defect structure which can be there. Like you can have composition, you can have segregation or differences in composition, localized differences in the composition. So whenever you say segregation, so it is one of the things which typically occurs in your additively manufactured components. So wherever there is a melt pool boundary, there you can have segregation of segregation in composition. So you can characterize for that. Then you can have point defects, you can have line defects, you can have stacking faults, like for example, because of low power laser beam, that can also
Your voice is not clear. And the slide has also gone.
Okay, I'll check once again. Now it is visible.
Coming.
Yeah, now college internet has come.
Yeah,
So
now it is coming. Yeah.
Voice is also clear.
Yeah, it is fine.
Okay, so we will have all these things in the term microstructure. Then we'll move to the next part. So now whenever we say microstructure, as I said that there are different features of your microstructures. You can have phases, you can have grain structure, you can have composition, you can have point defects, line defects, volume defects. So depending upon what you want to see, you will have different length scales. So you can start from typical optical microstructure if that is sufficient. Okay, so you have optical microstructure, then one level up you have scanning electron microscope, then one level up if you want to see the localized chemical composition, you will have scanning electron microscope coupled with energy dispersive spectrometer. Now after this you will have defect structure. Okay, so sometimes you will be interested in the defect structure. So for that you will have to use transmission electron microscope and high resolution transmission electron microscope. So these are the different length scales at which you can characterize your structure and you can correlate with the properties. Okay, so just very briefly, so this is your optical microscope. Now you can zoom on your structure. So whenever I say structure property correlation, most of the time I will be correlating my properties with the microstructure at some length scale. So there are different length scales. At some length scale, I will be correlating my mechanical properties with the microstructure. So this is your optical microscope in which you can get bulk view. That means it can go maximum up to 1000x. You can zoom on any of your material structure up to 1000x and then you can see the structure. Then you have scanning electron microscope for that. Now in this structure, for example, if there is a precipitate at this location and if you want to find out the chemical composition, then what you need to do is that to this scanning electron microscope you will have to attach an energy dispersive attachment which will give me the localized chemical composition. Now this scanning electron microscope uses electron beam as the source. This uses white light as the source and hence you will have a change in the resolution. So resolution will be better in scanning electron microscope, it will be poor in optical microscope. Scanning electron microscope, it will have more capability in terms of functionality. That means you can measure localized chemical composition. Then you can also measure what is called as orientation of each of these grain by using an electron backscatter diffraction arrangement inside scanning electron microscope. Okay, so you have this electron beam. Here you will be having a sample. So your electron beam will be interacting with the sample and it will be giving out signals. So whenever it is hitting your specimen, it can also give out diffraction. So you can capture that diffraction to find out this particular phase. So you can do phase identification. you can do electron backscatter diffraction, you can do orientation of the grains. All those things you can do by coupling this particular thing with an electron backscatter diffraction attachment, just like EDF attachment. Okay, now one more thing. Now, whenever I say the term microstructure, this microstructure is usually three-dimensional. So whatever structure you are having of the material, that will be in 3 dimension. So this is one particular example. It is a synthetic microstructure. Now what we observe by any of the techniques, like for example, optical microscope or scanning electron microscope or electron backscatter diffraction, what we observe is a 2D section of this 3D microstructure. So you have to be very careful whenever you are trying to correlate your properties with the microstructure. Okay, so this is just an example wherein this 2D microstructure is given for one particular plane. Like this is for RD&D plane. So that means this section. So this microstructure is for this section. So similarly, you can have a microstructure for this section and you can have a microstructure for this section. Just like whenever we are doing mechanical properties characterization, we do it in all the 3 directions. We say that we will find out the mechanical properties in this direction, we will find out the mechanical properties in this direction, or perpendicular to this particular plane. And we say that there is a isotropy or anisotropy of my material in terms of mechanical properties. In a similar fashion, you can have anisotropy of microstructure also, depending upon what section you are weaving. Okay, that is also very important. So once again, what section you are weaving, that has to be correlated properly with your mechanical properties. Okay, now, so this is, for me, this is just the, you can say, conventional definition of microstructure. You can say phase fraction, grain size, chemical composition, segregation, phase. So all this thing is generally a conventional definition of the microstructure. Now, apart from this conventional microstructure, is there anything else? Okay, so for example, let's say you have a single phase microstructure. So in this particular case, you can say this is a single phase microstructure. So here you will observe that there are different type of grains. Okay, so you can say that these are green grains, these are red. So they are in different colors. So basically, apart from your conventional microstructure, is there anything else? So which we can have in the microstructure and which is important. Now this particular thing is called as orientation of the grains, or you can say texture of the material. This is usually neglected, but it is very important as far as mechanical properties are concerned. You can have a very proper conventional microstructure, but the texture may not be, or orientation of the grains may not be appropriate for that particular mechanical property. So conventionally, sometimes you will find that chemical composition is proper, then there is no segregation, there is no inclusion, there are no defects in the materials, my material is perfect, but still I am not getting the properties, whatever technological properties I want to measure. So you have to look further deeper. So you'll have to look at the texture of the grains or texture of the material, orientation of the grains or the texture of the materials. Now you can see that this particular thing is your microstructure, which is obtained by using electron backscatter diffraction. So you'll see that there are different colored grains. Now on this different colored grains, I have drawn this. This is an example for a zirconium material, which is a hexagonal close pack. So I have drawn the unit cell. So this is a hexagonal unit cell. So since it is a single phase microstructure, all the grains are having HCP structure, but this HCP unit cell for each of this grain is oriented differently. So if you take any one reference frame, for example, you take this X, horizontal X, vertical Y, and perpendicular to the plane of the paper Z. So let's say I have X, Y, and Z. Okay, so this is my sample reference frame. Now this is my unit cell. So this unit cell will also have A, B, C. Okay, so it will have the A direction, it will have the B direction, and it will have the C direction. So this X, Y, Z and this ABC, they are related somehow. So you'll find that you can see this color. So this unit cell and this unit cell, if I draw a unit cell here, they will be identical in nature. So they will be having a similar correlation with the XYZ reference frame. As I said, your microstructure is three-dimensional. So these two grains are identical. So apart from your conventional microstructure, you have to look for this texture of the material also. Now, whenever I say microstructure, in this microstructure, this texture is incorporated and there are techniques now which can give you this information. So one such technique is your electron backscatter diffraction. Now, once again, few details, then we will move to the case studies. You can see this. This is typically for a rolled material. Now, you will find that whenever you are doing some sort of processing, there is always a reference direction associated with it. When you are doing rolling, it is rolling direction, transverse direction, and normal direction. When you are doing additive manufacturing, it is the build direction and it is the scan direction. So you will have the XY scan direction and you will have a build direction. So you can have some sort of a reference frame in all the materials which you are building or all the materials which you are making or manufacturing. So there are two types of textures. One is a morphological texture and one is a crystallographic texture. Now, when you are just looking at the morphology of the grains or morphology of the phases, it is called as a morphological texture. When you are looking at the crystallography, that means when you are looking at the ABC of the grains, it is called as crystallographic texture. So you have morphological texture, which is typically your elongation of the grains, alignment of the inclusions and other features with the direction of deformation or direction of building or whatever direction you are choosing. So this becomes my morphological texture. There is no crystallography involved. Crystallography of the phase is not involved in this. Now, whenever crystallography is involved, that means your RD, your TD and your ND, if they are correlated with the ABC of this, then crystallography will be involved. And then if there is a specific relationship, we will call that the material is having a crystallographic texture or it is not having a crystallographic texture. So now when you have material with and without crystallographic texture, it means that alignment of planes and direction of phases grains with the sample reference direction. So this I am terming as the sample reference direction. Okay, so one very brief example is given. So in this, you have this plane parallel to the sheet plane and this particular direction parallel to the rolling direction. So this is once again an example of rolled sheet. So you will see that this is my rolling direction, this is my transverse direction, and this is my normal direction. So this 001 plane of my crystal is parallel to the sheet plane and 110 direction is parallel to the rolling direction. So this is for this case. For this case, 001 is parallel to the sheet plane and 100 is parallel to the rolling direction. For the third, 110, 001, and for the fourth, 111 and 110. So this, all the four grains are BCC in nature. So this, let's say if it is iron, so all the four grains are going to be body centered cubic, but they will be oriented differently. And hence we call them as grains. Okay. So in this particular thing, we call this particular entire entity as a grain. And this is a second grain. This is a third grain. So this is oriented differently with respect to this. This is oriented differently with respect to this. And all three are oriented differently with respect to X, Y, and Z. So that is what is basically my HKL UV representation. Okay. Now, you can also have the second representation. Like for example, if you have the three reference frame RD, TD, and ND, and you have the three crystal reference frames. So sample reference frame and crystal reference frame. So you will find that in 3 dimension, exactly 3 rotations are needed to coincide the sample reference frame with the crystal reference frame or the crystal reference frame with the sample reference frame. So you will get typically 3 numbers, phi 1, phi, and phi 2. So you have this sample reference frame, this crystal reference frame, in 3 dimension, exactly 3 rotations are needed to coincide the sample reference frame with the crystal reference frame, or the crystal reference frame with the sample reference frame. We call it as orientation of that particular grain. So, okay, so this is what is this second definition of orientation. So this one is the last slide was first definition of the orientation. So likewise, you will find that there are many different notation, but all of them can be changed from one to other. The only important point here is that you need to pay attention to the orientation of the grains also. Now, all of you will ask why it is important, why this particular thing should be important. So I have taken an example from your superalloy, additively manufactured, and one cold rolled sheet. So low carbon steel, cold rolled and annealed. Okay. So now all of you know that whenever we do cold rolling operation or whenever we do any processing operation, the defect density in my material increases. Okay. So you will see that there are many dark patches in this. So these are basically all the defects which are present in my material, and there are certain grains. So this is a deformed material, and this is a recrystallized material. So now whenever you have deformation, you have to heat treat it. When you heat treat it, you are going to have what is called as recrystallization. Okay. So there will be many many type of heat treatments. All of you must be well aware about the heat treatment. Sometimes you do heat treatment to remove residual stresses. Sometimes you do heat treatment to bring back the material to its original condition. That means to improve the ductility. Okay. So when you deform it, you have a lot of defects. You heat treat it or recrystallize it, you have less defects. It reverts back to its original position. Okay. Now, when I say EBFT, it can measure all these things. Okay. So I can have a microstructure with the texture information. So you can take an optical microstructure from this area, and from the same area, you can take the micro texture. Okay. So in this example, it will be clear. So superalloys, this is additively manufactured superalloy. So you'll see that the bottom one is your conventional scanning electron microstructure or optical microstructure. So same thing will be visible in the optical microstructure also. So these are all your melt pool boundaries, you can see. Okay. So first layer, second layer, third layer, then again you will have hatch rotation and all the other processing parameters will be there. So you will see that. So in this particular first thing, it is green, second also green. So it is this particular, for this particular processing condition, my material is more like a single crystal. So everywhere you have majority of the green color. Okay. So depending upon the processing condition, you can have the microstructure, and accordingly you can correlate with this microstructure or microtexture with your mechanical properties. You may find that this particular thing will give you very good properties in this particular direction, very near to single crystal. Why? Because everywhere there is green color, everywhere the orientation is same, and hence you have to look for this particular texture also. Right? Okay, now coming to just 1 or 2 slides based on what is EBFD. So all of you know about conventional microstructural characterization techniques. So you have optical microscope. So when you go one level up, you have scanning electron microscope. So this is a typical scanning electron microscope. Here you will have an electron gun. This electron gun will emit electrons. Then there will be condenser lenses which will focus this particular thing onto your specimen, and you will get secondary electrons or backscattered electrons, and accordingly you will get the microstructure of your material. So this is SEM. So you'll go to the first point, you will capture the secondary electrons, you'll go to the second point, you'll capture the secondary electrons, and then you will reconstruct the image. Now, in addition to this, if suppose you want to find out chemical composition, localized chemical composition, so you will always find that whenever you have such kind of a structure, so there is segregation at this melt pool boundaries. So whatever melt pool boundaries are there, you will have segregation of the elements. Okay. So this segregation of the elements will be there. So if you want to characterize that, then you will be using this EDS. Now, similarly, you can also have what is called as electron backscatter diffraction to give you the orientation at each and every point on your sample. Okay, so this is very briefly how it works. So you have an electron beam, you are putting your specimen here. So once this specimen strikes your, once this electron beam strikes your sample, depending upon the grain structure and the grain orientation, you will have diffraction. So this diffraction, whatever this diffraction is there, that you are capturing, and you are solving this to get this orientation information at each of these particular points. So whatever points are there, you will go to the first point, you will capture this Kikuchi patterns, then you will solve this Kikuchi patterns to get either HKL UVW or 515, 52. So that means this particular orientation is determined. Then you will move to second. Likewise, you will move to each and every point on this particular specimen and you will capture this information. So just like you capture secondary electrons, backscattered electrons or EDS, in a similar fashion, you will capture this signal, and ultimately what you will get the orientation information. Now this orientation information is in the form of text file. So you'll see that 51552. So this is the orientation at this first point, that is the XY. So X0, Y0, and accordingly you will be moving in X direction, you will be moving in Y direction. So for all the X and Y points, you are going to get this 51552. So that means your orientation information can be readily determined if you attach an electron backscatter diffraction system to your SEM. Okay, so this is what is your micro texture. Now what information does it give? It gives you the orientation of each of these grains. From this you can determine a lot of other parameters like grain orientation spread, grain average misorientation, kernel average misorientation. So I will not go into all those details, but this can be utilized to analyze the deformed structure or the recrystallized structure in a much better way than your conventional microstructure. Okay, so this is what is your you can say microstructure. You have phases, you have grains, you have defects, and you have the orientation information. So that becomes my microstructure. Okay, now then coming to your additive manufacturing. Just give me. Okay, so coming to how all these things are important for additive manufacturing. Now, all of you know what is additive manufacturing. It is a process of joining materials to make objects from 3D model data, usually layer upon layer, as opposed to subtractive manufacturing technologies. So you are doing layer by layer manufacturing whenever you are doing additive manufacturing. So in a conventional sense, your design is for manufacturing. Now in additive manufacturing, you are having manufacturing for design. That means you are designing and then you are manufacturing. So I think these things are very much known to you, since you have already covered many lectures on that. Now advantages and significant features of AM: high cooling rates, microstructural and mechanical properties improvement, near net shape of complex geometry, relatively less time for complex geometries, green manufacturing, and reduced emission, overall cost, and material usage. So overall cost, I think it is debatable, because right now this AM is costlier than conventional manufacturing. So in future it may come down, the cost may come down. So these are some of the advantages. And if you see the applications, now as I spoke earlier, that means I told you in the initial part that mostly aluminium alloys, then super alloys, and austenitic stainless steel. So these are the three materials which are most widely used commercially for additive manufacturing. And there are various applications like heat exchangers, dies, holders, circuit boards, turbojet engine parts. So whatever you find difficult to manufacture by using conventional manufacturing processes, you will do it by using additive manufacturing process. And these are all the various methods. So you have powder bed fusion techniques like direct metal laser sintering, selective laser melting or electron beam melting. Then you have direct energy deposition methods like electron beam freeform, then wire laser additive manufacturing, wire arc additive manufacturing. And you also have droplet on demand type of systems like liquid metal 3D printing, where you are directly putting the liquid in a particular shape. And you can also have laser induced forward transfer type of things. So each of these are going to have its own advantages and disadvantages. So whatever I will be talking about is selective laser melting and direct energy deposition methods. So whatever structure property correlation is there for SLM and for DED methods. Okay, now moving to this AM process. Now, these are some of the process parameters. These are not some of the, actually these are many. Like you will find that whenever you do selective laser melting or direct energy deposition or electron beam melting, so there are a lot of process parameters. So if you if you classify them, some of the process parameters are based on the laser, some of them are based on scans like scanning speed, spacing, pattern, then laser related laser power, what should be the power of the laser, what is the spot size of the laser, then powder related, so you have size, so what should be the size of the powder, what should be the shape and distribution of the powder, what should be the layer thickness, what should be the bed density, and then temperature related, powder bed, what is the base plate temperature or what is the powder feeder temperature. And then typically you will find that scan speeds are always greater than 1000 mm per second. So if you combine all these process parameters, you will find that there are a huge number of variables to be optimized. Okay, now so these are some of the things which I have listed down. So you have laser power ranging from 250 to 370. So this particular section is for aluminum alloys. This particular thing is for your super alloys. Then particle size, then you have spot size of the laser, then you have the layer thickness, then you have hatch spacing. So that means spacing between the two layers. Then what is the base plate temperature? It can also serve as one of the process parameters. Now you will see that if you combine all of these things, you end up with a huge number of parameters, and you have to do structure property correlation. So you have to make a very big matrix and you'll have to do all these things, right? So I have selected some of the references, and based on what they have done, I have targeted the microstructure and structure property correlation. Now that is why this AM process parameters optimization is very crucial whenever you are doing near net shaped casting, you can say near net shaped manufacturing. So this processing parameters will play a very important role, because all of these processing parameters can change your structure significantly. Okay. Now this particular slide shows the microstructure of ALSI 10mg. Okay. Now once again, this is X and Z direction. So Z is the build direction. So this Z direction is your build direction, and X1 is your scanning direction. So you will have the X and Y as the scanning direction and Z as the build direction. So this is for ALSI 10mg. Now this is in the XZ plane. This one is in the XY plane. Okay. So this cell size at the melt pool boundaries. So these are your melt pool boundaries. And this is your cell interior. Now cell size at the melt pool boundary will depend very much upon your processing parameters. So this melt pool boundary cell size is typically 2 to 4 micron. Cell size inside the melt pool is typically 0.6 micron. Then once again, since it is ALSI 10 mg, all of you know that silicon is not miscible with aluminum, so it will precipitate out as pure silicon. So you have silicon particles in the range 20 nanometers at the melt pool boundaries, and 4 to 5 nanometers and 20 to 100 nanometers inside the melt pool boundaries, depending upon the processing parameters. Okay. Then once again, you will also have the width of this melt pool boundaries, and then you will have the porosities. Now in a SLM process, you will usually have porosities less than 0.5%. On the same lines, if you go to DED, direct energy deposition, you will have higher porosities. It can go up to 2 or 3 or 4% depending upon your process parameters. Now, in all this, porosity is one of the important parameters which determines your properties, because porosities can act as stress reserves. Okay, it can act as the points where you can have stress concentrations. So most of the time you will have to optimize for the porosity. You don't want your material to be highly porous. So these are some of the examples. So once again, this is optical microstructure. Then this is your scanning electron microstructure. And once again, scanning electron microstructure at a very high magnification, 10 micron bar. So this much length represents 10 micron. So you see that in a additively manufactured components, you will have a very, very small cell size. Now, if you manufacture the same material by conventional methods, like for example, casting, you will find that this microstructure is not that fine. So most of the properties which are there for this additively manufactured components is because of the very fine microstructure which is present. Okay. And once again, this is a zoomed version of this particular thing, and you will see this porosities. Now here you will have two different type of porosities, circular and irregular. So some of the geometries will be irregular and some of the geometries will be circular. So this circular ones are typically your porosities because of gas entrapment. So when this gas releases from your metal, it forms spherical pores. So whenever you have spherical, that means it is because of the gases which are entrapped and which are released. Now those which are irregular, they may signify low laser power and unmelting of the powder which is present at that particular location, or maybe powder agglomeration, and hence it is unable to melt. So irregular shape and this regular shape. So porosities is one of the main things which you'll have to correlate with the structure along with this cell size. And once again, your cell size will change depending upon you can say processing parameters, and once again you will be doing heat treatment. Now one of the other parameters which come into picture in additively manufactured components is the residual stress. So you will have a huge buildup of residual stress because the cooling rates are extremely fast and your cell structure is very, very fine. So because of this, residual stresses will build up and you are doing it repeatedly. So you may require heat treatment. Now when you do heat treatment, this whatever cell size is there, that may change and your properties may degrade, and whatever advantages are there for your AM material, that may be gone. So you have to optimize your heat treatment based on the structure. Okay, so the same thing, but at a larger scale. So this is your melt pool boundaries. So this is the zoomed version of your melt pool boundaries. So you will see that coarse cellular zone, then you will have heat affected zone, and then you will have the fine cellular zone. So inside you will have a very fine cellular zone, then you will have a heat affected zone, and then you will have a coarse cellular structure because of this melt pool boundaries. Then this is a TM microstructure, transmission electron microscopy microstructure, which was used to see how this cell size, what is the morphology and what is the chemical composition of this cell size. So here you can see that this is possibly for aluminium, this is for silicon, and this is for Mg2Si. Yeah. So how silicon is distributed, how aluminium is distributed, and how Mg is distributed. Here you can see the cluster. So possibility is that here you have large precipitates of Mg2Si, and at all other locations you have very fine precipitates of Mg2Si. So you'll have to characterize the structure first, and then this will decide your mechanical properties. Okay, so once again the same thing, but only thing is that now heat treatment has been done. So earlier one was added as printed material, and then after heat treatment. Okay, so this is a schematic which illustrates the process. Now as fabricated AlSi 10 Mg, so you have a very fine structure in which you have alpha aluminium, and then you have a supersaturated silicon, and then here you have a eutectic microstructure of alpha aluminium and silicon, which is very, very finely distributed. After heat treatment at 300 degrees C, still the cellular structure is preserved. Whatever cellular structure is there, it is preserved, and only thing is that you have a coarsening of this particular silicon particles and precipitation of some silicon particles in the primary alpha phase, because since it is a supersaturated silicon solid solution. Now, if you do heat treatment at 530 degrees centigrade, then you will find that AlFeSi beta precipitates and alpha precipitates have formed, which may be unwanted. So once again, this is the SEM micrograph of AlFeSi beta particle, and this is a silicon particle. So here it is very, very coarse. So you have to design your heat treatment accordingly. Now, similarly, if you see the as printed structure of Inconel, okay. Similarly, if you see the as printed structure of Inconel, you will find that you will have porosities, then you will have dendritic arm spacing, then you will have size of the pores, average grain size, and you will see that depending upon your processing parameters, you can have the formation of Laves phases. Now, in general, whenever you want to use Inconel, you want coherent Ni3Nb precipitates. So this Ni3Nb precipitates are coherent with the matrix, and they will give you the required high temperature properties for this Inconel alloy. So you'll have to check this structure for those particles as well as this Laves phases. So here you can see that there are a lot of Laves phases which are formed, and these are not going to give you good properties. They are going to make your material brittle. And on the same lines, you have this grains, orientation of this particular grains, which we discussed earlier. And this is comparison between the conventionally cast material and the additively manufactured material. So here you can see that this microstructure is very, very coarse. Okay, so the EBFD observation for casting sample in transverse and vertical cross section, and the selectively laser melted sample in vertical cross section and the transverse cross section perpendicular to the building direction. So you will see that this is a very coarse microstructure, and here it is a very fine microstructure, but once again, it is having a highly elongated morphology. So this may have more anisotropy than this microstructure. So that you'll have to check, and then, okay, all this are similar things. Now this is a summary of this mechanical properties for aluminum alloys and your Inconel alloy. Okay. Now you will see that this is for the die cast A360, which is having chemical composition very close to this AlFi 10 Mg. So in the casted condition, it is having a yield strength of 165, elongation of 3.5. So you will see that after doing additive manufacturing and maybe heat treatment, these properties have significantly improved, and your elongation also has improved. So this is the elongation in the vertical build direction, and this is the elongation in the horizontal build direction. Okay, so depending upon the application, you can do this comparison. So for AlFi 10 Mg, this is giving much better properties, but these properties are also having a huge directionality. Now same is there for your Inconel alloy, but Inconel alloy, you will see that the properties have degraded. So wrought Inconel alloy 1030 to 1167 MPa is the yield strength in the vertical direction, and in the horizontal direction they have not reported. But for the additive manufactured material, this has degraded. Now this is because of the Laves phases. See, all these Laves phases, intermetallic particles, they are formed, and hence your properties have degraded. Right? What you ideally want, you want coherent precipitates of Ni3Nb, okay, which are not forming here in this particular references. So that means your process, whatever processing parameters are there, they are not yet optimized to get this particular properties, this particular level of the properties. And once again, you will see that this elongation has improved, but once again, strength has degraded. So summary, additively manufactured SLM process specimens have significantly improved mechanical properties in comparison to specimens fabricated by conventional casting process. This is for aluminum alloys. The elongation of the horizontally built sample is greater than that of the vertically built sample in general. Then surface or subsurface defects, pores, non-melted spots act as crack initiators. So this needs to be minimized. The creep resistance of this is very close to the particle reinforced aluminum composites, and evolution of Mg to Si precipitates can contribute to strengthening. Only thing is that you will have to optimize the heat treatment. The heat treatment should not break the cellular structure which is produced by the AM, but at the same time, it should also result in the precipitation of Mg2Si. So that is for aluminum alloys. And the next one is basically for Inconel 718 alloy. So the UTS and YS of SLM Inconel 718 alloy gradually decreases along the build direction while the elongation exhibits an opposite trend. And there is about 13% difference in the hardness. So these are some of the things which I have already discussed. Okay, and then heat treatment, that means you have to minimize the voids, you have to optimize the heat treatment to get best properties. Now this is another case study in which Inconel alloy was used. This was once again Inconel I think 718. So in this, what was done is they varied the build direction. So this is XY scanning. So this is XY scan directions are X and Y, and then you have this build direction. So 0 degrees, 35 degrees and 45 degrees. So these are the 0 degrees, 35 degrees and 45 degrees sample, and then mechanical properties were measured. So 0 degrees were giving much better mechanical properties, but the strength is lower. So that means basically there is once again the formation of unwanted lathe phases, so which needs to be removed. Okay. And this is what I was talking about, texture. Now this V is the scan speed and P is the power of the laser, and this is typically termed as IPF maps, like inverse pole figure maps, which is showing the variation. So all green color grains, columnar grains, are almost similar in orientation. So you'll find that this process parameters play a significant role in making your material near to single crystal or near to polycrystal. So this particular thing is very close to polycrystalline. This particular thing is very close to single crystal, right? Here once again only two components are there. So you have to play with this process parameters, and you'll have to look for this texture also. This can also decide your mechanical properties. Okay, so these are the three microstructures. So what they are calling it as crystallographic lamellar microstructure. So because you are having green as well as red, so that means there are two components of your texture. Single crystal like microstructure, you are having all green, most of it is green. That means it is having one single grain, it is very near to single crystal, and polycrystalline like microstructure. So, and these are the processing parameters. So you'll see that single crystal microstructure, polycrystal microstructure and columnar microstructure. So these are the values for true stress and true strain. So depending upon your microstructure, along with whatever lathe phases, whatever phase boundaries, grain boundaries, you also have this crystallographic texture playing an important role in deciding the mechanical properties. Okay, so these are the values which are from this particular thing. So columnar like microstructure, single crystal like microstructure, and polycrystalline microstructure, and this is the conventional one, conventionally cast one. So what is the difference? Okay, so cast one is having low elongation. Then your additive manufacturing is always giving high percentage elongation for Inconel. So in the earlier case also we have seen that this AM is beneficial as far as elongation is concerned, but it is not beneficial as far as your YS and UTS are considered. Now similar things will be there for if you want to measure fatigue resistance, creep resistance and other things. Now this one is the last case study. So in this selective laser melting of 316 austenitic stainless steel was done, and 4 layers in this configuration: first layer, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, first layer, second layer, third layer, first layer, second layer, and all these things. So these 4 conditions were compared. So there was a comparison of hatch style. So this is the hatch style. So you can have a 90 degrees rotation after each layer. You can have 120 degrees rotation after each layer. You can have 180 degrees rotation, 90 degrees rotation once again after 2 layers, and one single direction. And so this is hatching style. And this is the hatch rotation, 0 degrees, 60 degrees, 74 degrees and 90 degrees. So the first layer like this, second layer 60 degrees, third layer like this. So n minus 1th layer. So in this particular study, hatch style and hatch rotation and its effect on the microstructure and texture and mechanical properties were considered. Now we will not talk about texture analysis because we have not gone into much details in this texture analysis. So these are the microstructures which were obtained by electron backscatter diffraction. So this was based on the hatch style and this was based on the hatch rotation. And this is what is, since the samples were very small in size, only compression was done in this. So you will see that there is a significant effect of this on the compression. Okay, ductility was almost similar, but there was variation in the work hardening whenever you are doing compression. And the same was true for this hatch rotation. Now the significant effect was on fracture toughness. Now selectively laser melted component, then wire arc additive manufacturing and wrought. All three were compared. So this SLM was giving much better fracture toughness as compared to other two processes. So that is what is basically structure property correlation in additively manufactured components. So I think this is all from my side. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Now the forum is open for discussion. If you have any questions, you can welcome.
Hello, sir. Yeah, actually, I'm having one question. So actually, our work was related to casting process, and our material was tin alloy.
Tin
So
alloy, okay.
we tried to do that EBSD analysis at IIT Bombay.
Okay.
In that one of the triple
Yeah,
MF lab.
okay.
So what happened that that images which we got from the EBSD were not clear at all.
Okay.
So I not got the exact reason why that was possible.
Okay, so actually, see, this was just a structure property correlation thing. Now, I have shown you very nice images, but they are all taken from references. Okay, now there is you need a tremendous amount of optimization if you want to have good electron backscatter diffraction patterns. So generally the process for making EBFD sample is that you do metallographic polishing, and then after that, what do you use? Do you use colloidal silica or you use electropolishing?
Colloidal silica because if that electropolishing was done, those specimen used to burn, they used to become black.
Okay. Yeah, so actually colloidal silica in AM materials, according to my experience and my observation, this colloidal silica is not going to give you very good results because it is a highly inhomogeneous microstructure. Okay, and the microstructure is extremely fine. Now, when you do electropolishing needs to be optimized very, very carefully. So I have seen one person who has who spent time in optimizing this electropolishing around 4 months. Okay. And the make and model of the machine is also going to play a very, very important role. So there are many type of machines like Stuvers is there, then Buehler is there, and then there is a local made. So Stuvers is a very, very good machine. The electronics, the noise and everything is extremely fine, and you have to really play with the electropolishing parameters, and you will have to optimize your electropolishing because the entire EBFD thing is dependent upon your electropolishing in this particular case. So you have to optimize your electropolishing. There is no problem with the machine.
Okay.
So I suppose that you are not getting clear microstructure because your sample preparation was not perfect.
Okay. And is there any role of that etching agent, because we use nitrile for that?
No, nitrile is for etching. For electropolishing, you may have to use some different reagent. Nitrile is never used for etching, electropolishing. Electropolishing is generally done by using a mixture of 80% ethanol and 20% perchloric acid.
Okay.
So see, there are a lot of parameters in electropolishing also. You have time, you have voltage, you have current, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you have to really optimize that thing. See, you do the polishing, then you take it to the EBFD machine, do a small scan, then once again come back. If that is not proper, once again do that. So actually the key is electropolishing. Electropolishing needs to be very carefully optimized for getting these patterns.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
You must have seen that in the cast material, you will get it very easily. Cast
Yes,
material
sir.
also, AM it will be very difficult.
Actually, our material is cast only, sir. Cast only.
Okay, cast. But yours is a tin alloy, right?
Yes, sir.
So you search the handbook. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So in the handbook, there are electropolishing reagents which are given, or you contact the manufacturer, they will tell you. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it hello? Good afternoon, Dr. Rajesh. I think
Yes.
just I have to start in my video, and I have to appreciate your presentation. Hopefully, by face you can recognize me. We both are at the same time in IIT Bombay,
Yes,
and
Pankaj,
I'm totally feel pleasure and good to listen your lecture again
yeah.
as a professor in this line.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your presentation and work that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any other questions, please? So can we have a photograph, sir? Let everyone start your video. So let us have one photograph,
Okay.
sir.
I think I finished early, right?
Yeah, 1 hour is okay, sir. 1 hour, 5 minutes is okay. And 15, 20 minutes we had discussion also.
Okay.
Yeah. So this time one good thing is that many are PhD scholars from various institutes, sir, who are working on additive manufacturing, but not exactly the metal additive, but at least somewhere the other they are working on additive manufacturing. Because yesterday, Delhi for yesterday also, they were having a lot of queries on characterization, SEM, everything actually. They were asking questions. Then I told you have to
That is
wait
why
till
I thought
Thursday.
that, yeah, that is why I thought that I will briefly introduce them to the characterization first, and then I'll move to AM.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, if you can take a photograph, that will be great.
Yes, sir, it's done.
Yes. Okay. Huh? Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. If you have any other queries, you can write in the chat box, or we can stop this session at this location. Okay, sir. Thank you for the wonderful
Very
lecture.
much
And
for listening to me.
yeah. Correct. So we will come back again at 3 o'clock for the next lecture from IIT Jammu. Actually. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.